Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this evening's tropical update. So the tropics have gotten extremely active as we now have 4 tropical cyclones in the Atlantic basin. We have Hurricane Fiona with maximum sustained winds of 125 miles per hour, a minimum central pressure of 940 millibars, and north-northeasterly movement at 40 miles per hour. And Fiona is expected to bring major impacts to Nova Scotia and Newfoundland in the next 24 to 36 hours. So make sure you have major hurricane preparations in Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. We have Tropical Storm Gaston impacting the Azores Islands with 60-mile-per-hour winds, a 995 millibar pressure, and southerly movement at 9 miles per hour. And we have newly formed Tropical Storm Hermine just west of Africa with 40-mile-per-hour winds, 1,002 millibar minimum central pressure, and north-northwesterly movement at 10 miles per hour. But this video is going to be focusing on Tropical Depression 9, which has maximum sustained winds of 35 miles per hour, a minimum central pressure of 1,006 millibars, and is moving west-northwest at 15 miles per hour. Looking at the satellite imagery of Tropical Depression 9, it is still dealing with easterly wind shear from the outflow of Hurricane Fiona, but this wind shear is quickly dying down, and in the next 12 to 24 hours, as Hurricane Fiona quickly moves away from anywhere near the system, the shear is going to completely relax. And taking a look at the wind shear map, the wind shear is already starting to relax, as the system is now only dealing with about 15 to 20 knots of wind shear, whereas yesterday it was dealing with about 25 to 30 knots. And this outflow is rapidly falling apart. And as Tropical Depression 9 moves into the central and eventually northwestern Caribbean, it is going to be dealing with almost no wind shear, extremely warm sea surface temperatures, and these sea surface temperatures are going to extend downward very deep. So we are looking at the likelihood of a quickly strengthening tropical storm and eventually hurricane once Tropical Depression 9 gets southwest of Jamaica. And looking at the National Hurricane Center's official cone for Tropical Depression 9, it is expected to become a tropical storm by tomorrow morning, is expected to pass south of Jamaica by early Sunday morning, southwest of Jamaica Sunday afternoon, and by Monday is forecast to become a hurricane and hit Grand Cayman as a hurricane, and then continue towards Cuba as a strengthening hurricane by Monday and Tuesday. And by Wednesday, the official Hurricane Center shows a major hurricane approaching Tampa, Florida. So we have tropical storm watches in effect for Jamaica and hurricane watches in effect for the Cayman Islands. So if you are in the Cayman Islands, Cuba, and especially Florida, the west coast of Florida, you need to be making hurricane preparations, as you're going to be dealing with a strengthening hurricane moving your way between Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Looking at the spaghetti model plots for where Tropical Depression 9 is going to be moving, it's expected to pass southwest of Jamaica in the next 48 hours, move through the Cayman Islands in about 60 hours, and through Cuba in about 84 hours. And then in about 120 to 144 hours, Tropical Depression 9 is expected to approach the west coast of Florida, likely as a major hurricane. And looking at the intensity model guidance, the model is intensify Tropical Depression 9 to a tropical storm in the next 24 hours, Category 1 hurricane in the next 60 hours, Category 2 hurricane in the next 84 hours, and several of the models strengthen it to a Category 3 hurricane in the next 108 hours or 5 days as it approaches Florida. So you really need to be watching this in Florida. Looking at the latest European model run for Tropical Depression 9, here it is south of Hispaniola as an organizing tropical depression going into tomorrow, Saturday the 24th. The system still seems to struggle to develop, as is a little bit southeast of Jamaica, but once we get into Sunday, September the 25th, the European model develops Tropical Depression 9 into a tropical storm south of Jamaica, and then the European model moves a strengthening strong tropical storm through the Cayman Islands by Monday, September the 26th, and rapidly strengthens it into a Category 2 hurricane approaching Cuba by Tuesday, September the 27th, and the European model moves it between Cuba and the Florida Keys by Wednesday, September the 28th, where it is strengthening to a Category 3 hurricane, and the European model makes a landfall between Naples and Tampa, Florida, sometime Wednesday morning, September the 28th now. And that's not all. The European model curves Tropical Depression 9 east of Florida and then curves it back into the Carolinas with a secondary landfall as a Category 2 hurricane on Friday, September the 30th. So we're really going to have to see if this trend continues as well, because we could be seeing impacts for not only Florida, but for the Carolinas and much of the east, the southeast, and mid-Atlantic as well, if this scenario plays out. Looking at the European model, or the GFS model, the GFS model forms Tropical Depression 9 to a tropical storm on Sunday, September the 25th. And by the 26th, we have a strengthening hurricane approaching the Cayman Islands, and the GFS has a stronger hurricane, a Category 3 hurricane going through the Cayman Islands. So if this system strengthens quicker, there are going to be more impacts in the Cayman Islands. So you need to be really making your preparations there. GFS model by September the 27th, Tuesday, makes a landfalling Category 3 or even 4 hurricane in western Cuba, and the GFS model brings the system further west than the European, making a landfalling major hurricane, possibly even a Category 4 if the GFS pans out, between Panama City Beach and Tampa. So this solution is also worrying, because we're going to be dealing with a stronger hurricane if the GFS model pans out. And looking at potential rainfall totals before we close the video out, in the GFS model, we are expecting about 1 to 3 inches of rain across Jamaica. The Cayman Islands are expecting about 3 to 5 inches. And then into Cuba, generally about 2 to 4 inches, but where the core of the hurricane goes, or just east of it, about 7 to 12 inches could fall. And then looking at Florida, Florida could be seeing, depending on where Tropical Depression 9 goes, anywhere from 3 to 7 inches of rain. And then the European model for precipitation accumulation shows Jamaica getting about 3 to 6 inches of rain, the Cayman Islands getting about 7 to as much as 9 inches of rain, much of Cuba getting about 4 to 8 inches, and then the farther easterly tract brings about 5 to 10 inches of rain across much of the Florida peninsula. So there could be a lot of flooding in addition to the strong winds across the Northwest Caribbean and Florida from Tropical Depression 9. So thanks for watching my update on Tropical Depression 9. Make sure if you live in the Cayman Islands, Cuba, and Florida to start making your hurricane preparations, and keep a very close eye on Tropical Depression 9 if you live across Georgia and the Carolinas. Stay safe and have a wonderful evening, my friends.